So good morning, everyone, and welcome to 02 02222022. That's truly a Tuesday, and happy to be back here. And I had a nice visit with my father. So to jump in, we're beginning with the topic of feelings, feeling tones, and to be very simple about it, the idea, the theory in Buddhism is that all experiences have three tonalities, three feeling tones. They are pleasant, or they're unpleasant, or they're neither pleasant or unpleasant. And one of the reasons this is significant is that one of the primary ways in which the mind gets activated to be for and against things, to move towards things and move away from things, is whether they're pleasant or unpleasant. And exactly our relationship to what is neither pleasant or unpleasant is variable. And and so if we bring attention to the pleasant, unpleasant, neither unpleasant or unpleasant, it gives us and if everything has this quality, everything has characterized in some way by this tonality, that we can, if we notice that, we have a big handle, big perspective of noticing on how we react. So in this meditation, as we're sitting here, and if you would maybe notice, as you do your regular meditation practice, mindfulness practice, whether the experience is pleasant, unpleasant, or neither those two. But more importantly, notice if there's even the slightest little movement for or against, or moving towards or moving away from. Just that very simple, what is the response in our system, our somatic, our psychological system? And can you notice this ever so slight or very great movement away from or towards, away from the unpleasant towards the pleasant, or being in favor or for the pleasant? Oh yes, that's good. And have an unfavorable reaction to the unpleasant. Oh no, not that again, or something. And as I said, it can be very subtle. It can be just a slight shift in the texture or the size or the strength of the awareness, and it could shut down on one side and kind of open up in the other, or it could be quite strong. The whole body can move, or the mind can get spin out into kinds of thoughts and reaction one way or the other. So let's begin with that, and then I'll talk more about it. So taking a comfortable, alert posture, and gently closing the eyes. And then scan through your body to see there are probably pleasant and unpleasant sensations in your body as you sit here. And scan through your body and just calmly recognize the pleasant and the unpleasant ones. And as you do you notice any simple movement for and against, wanting and not wanting, moving towards, moving away? What is the response to being aware of pleasant and unpleasant? Scanning around your body for the pleasant and unpleasant, and just not lingering any one place for long, just like an inventory. And then bringing your attention to your breathing. Taking some long, slow breaths. And if possible, breathe in a pleasant way. So long, slow, gentle, deep breath in, and a long exhale where you relax and let go. And letting your breathing return to normal. And continue to, on the exhale, maybe breathing in normally, but ever so slightly exhaling longer than normal. And in the exhale, letting go, relaxing the face, the shoulders, the belly, anywhere in the body. And then letting your breathing return to normal completely, and tuning in now to the simple experience of breathing. And noticing, are there parts of the breathing that are more pleasant? Maybe some that are unpleasant. And are you kind of equanimous either way, or is there in fact some very simple being for or against, wanting or not wanting, moving towards or moving away, with what is pleasant and unpleasant, and in the experience of breathing. And if other things in your experience come into awareness besides the breathing, be mindful of whether it's a pleasant or an unpleasant, or neither pleasant or unpleasant experience. And also see if you can notice if there are any ways in which you are responding, reacting to the pleasant or unpleasantness of it. rather than somehow subtly getting involved in the preferences and the wanting and not wanting of pleasant and unpleasant. See if you can abide, live in the knowing that this is happening. Just to see and recognize it's like this. There is pleasant and there's wanting. There's unpleasant and there's not wanting. Being aware of your reactions to pleasant and unpleasant. And if you're aware of them clearly enough, you'll see that you are not your reactions. They're simply reactions, responses, desires and aversions, being for or against. But it's not you. When you rest in awareness of it all, just knowing, as if awareness is larger, more peaceful than any reaction you have. then in the last minutes before the ending, whatever seems pleasant, comfortable in your meditation, if there is such a thing, breathe with that and let the mind settle into that, supported by what is comfortable or pleasant, in settling further into the present moment, thinking, quieting down. And then as we come to the end of this sitting, considering that our lives will always contain degrees of pleasant and degrees of unpleasantness, comfort and discomfort, ease and unease. It's part and parcel of the human life. And it's possible to be free, it's possible to be peaceful. It's possible to, in knowing pleasant and unpleasant, knowing our reactions, it's possible to feel peaceful, safe, happy. Our happiness does not need to depend on things being pleasant or unpleasant. Happiness belongs to something deeper in us. Something that's related to our capacity for simple awareness, being present here in a full way. And so as we come to the end of the sitting, may we wish that people find their way with the pleasant and unpleasant challenges of this life, and find a freedom and a happiness and a peacefulness that's not so dependent on whether there's pleasant or unpleasantness. May we dwell with awareness that's independent, not dependent on pleasant and unpleasant. And wish that for others, so that all beings may find a sustainable happiness, a sustainable safety, peace, and freedom. May all beings be happy, and may our careful attention to this aspect of the mindfulness, pleasant and unpleasant, be in the service of the welfare and happiness of all beings, including ourselves. So good morning, everyone, and I appreciated comments about Paul Farmer and his unfortunate passing, and I was very thinking about him today and yesterday. I was thinking I'm happy that we, as a community, raised that over $30,000 last summer for his organization to end their work in Haiti, and glad we could do it when he was still alive. And so may his work continue, and may our work caring for others continue as well, inspired by him. So the topic now for the second foundation of mindfulness is quite a profound topic, and the simple explanation of what it is doesn't clearly indicate how profound it is. But there's a building on or continuing a kind of theme that you find in the teachings of the Buddha around the idea of omniscience. There were people who wanted spiritual leaders to be omniscient back in the time of the Buddha, and there were apparently some spiritual teachers who claimed a certain kind of omniscience. And the Buddha was one who didn't so much push things away or deny things. He would accept them and then redefine them in his own terms. So he didn't say it exactly the way I'm saying it, but I'm building on how he says that that he is omniscient, and all of us can be omniscient in a particular way. We can know something about everything, and that something is we can know the feeling tone of every experience we have. And no matter what the experience is, it's either pleasant or unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So there's no, in terms of the hedonic tone, those are the three options. There might be many other features of our experience besides the hedonic tone, but that tonality has those three characteristics. And so you know something about everything if you know its tone, its feeling tone. And to get a handle and to recognize feeling tone as it arises, in all kinds, situation can be very complicated. And then you realize, oh, this is a very unpleasant situation. It's just unpleasant. And that recognizing the unpleasantness of it gives mindfulness a place to land or to settle or to open, so that the mind is not jumping around or confused or chasing after trying to understand it or analyze it or, just track what's going on, and allow something to settle. Same thing with something that's pleasant, right? Oh, this is really pleasant. And no wonder that I'm leaning forward so much. And so to be able to, to be able to recognize the reactions we have with pleasant and unpleasant is tremendously useful. It turns out a very high percentage of human reactivity, of wanting and not wanting, is not based on the sophisticated analysis of the situation, but rather on the very simple, almost amoeba-like idea of going towards what's pleasant and away from what's unpleasant. And if we could watch that movement for and against, and see it clearly before we live in it or are pushed around by it, there's a lot of freedom that can be found. And more than freedom, there can be a lot of deep understanding about ourselves, like opens a window, a door, to a deeper understanding of ourselves. And this is what this second foundation is about. This is my understanding, my interpretation, is that there's a transition here in the second foundation from attention to the body to the attention to the mind. And the mind being something, the citta being something deep inside. There's a movement to what's a little bit more peripheral, to what's deeper inside. In the first foundation were the breathing, the postures, the activities which the body does. And then there's this use of the imagination or use of reflection to consider the parts of the body and to consider the elements of the body and consider what it's like for the body to be there without any sensations at all. And then, and now, we're kind of a rebirth in the second foundation, where following the corpse meditation that we did last week, I think there can be a heightened sensitivity, heightened interest now in the sensations that are evidence that we're alive. And so there's a heightened kind of, this is something to appreciate and value. And as we go into the feeling tones, we're actually beginning to get into the deeper functioning of the mind, deeper qualities of the mind. And we'll see in a day or two that this very foundation of feeling tone makes a distinction between that which is of the flesh, that which is kind of surface, and that which is dharmic, that the dharmic feelings, the deeper mind, what's going on in a deeper way. And this transition from what's more surface, sensual feelings, to what's more non-sensual or deeper in the mind, deeper in our kind of inner life, is a phenomenal transition that happens in this second foundation. But at first, we want to just understand a little bit these three tones: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. The word for pleasant is sukha, S-U-K-H-A, and unpleasant is dukkha. Often we translate that as suffering, and D-U-K-K-H-A. The most literal meaning of dukkha is pain, and sukha is happiness, and then by application, it becomes, because it is such a broad range of feeling tones, rather than making it pain and happiness or pain and pleasure, it's pleasant and unpleasant to capture the subtlety. But you have to remember it also applies to the most intense versions of those. And at first, the focus is much more on sensual pleasant and unpleasantness. That's why sensuality, I guess you can have pleasure, but where the difference is between pleasant and pleasure probably has a lot to do with how much we lean into it, how much we get caught in it and involved in it. And there's less involvement with the pleasant and unpleasant. But pleasant and unpleasant is understood in Buddhism to be a quality of the mind. And it's not just purely physical. And this was a confusion I had in my early years of studying Buddhism. I thought pleasant and unpleasant was purely a physical reaction to things that had nothing to do with my evaluation of it. But if I read deeper in the suttas, it's actually a little more complicated, and it's not just, we're not innocent bystanders of pleasant and unpleasant. There can be a subtle leaning into it, or formation or prioritization of it, or preference going on in the very idea of pleasant and unpleasant. That it's not completely only a physical phenomena. The mind participates in the formation of pleasant and unpleasant. And so this points to how we're now beginning to dip our toe into the deeper well of our inner life or our life, that the feeling tone is not just physical and mechanical. It involves a mutuality, a reaction, mental processes as well are touched as we feel pleasant and unpleasant. We don't have to understand all how this works, but we want to be able to start appreciating that pleasant and unpleasant comes off the tongue quite easily as just something that seems hedonistic or seems distant from the full sophisticated life we live, or the full range of happiness and unhappiness that we might experience. But to begin keeping it that simple and beginning to recognize how often and how much we're reacting to pleasant and unpleasant. Sometimes we're reacting to what is neither pleasant or unpleasant. We begin finding we have more choice to not react, or to step back in a broader awareness, where the awareness is not the reaction. The awareness just knows the reaction. And this develops and strengthens mindfulness a lot. And this is kind of the direction we're going to in Satipatthana. We're moving in the direction of cultivating an awareness that can observe the experience, or can be wide enough to hold the experience. And so pleasant, unpleasant, liking and not liking, wanting and not wanting, can all be just seen through awareness, through mindfulness, and known. And it makes a world of difference to see it and to know it. So and finally, I'll say that, and I suspect that the way I'm teaching it today, maybe you don't get a sense of its full value. For the Buddha, there were this vedanā, which is a Pali word for feeling tone, vedana, is one of the. He points to this as being one of the most important pivot points for our experience. It's kind of like there's a funnel, an hourglass, and the neck is where the feeling tones are. Everything goes through that neck, and there's all these different things that go through, but everything has to go through the neck of feeling tones before it fans out again in the hourglass. And so Buddha pointed to feeling tones as having this central foundational role for mindfulness practice, for getting a handle on our experience and becoming free. And he pointed to this as an alternative to getting wrapped up in philosophical enterprises of his times, philosophies and interpretation, speculation about metaphysics and spirituality. He was pointing to direct experience, and in particular he pointed to this feeling tone as being so important to help us become free, to understand what's going on in a deeper way. And and then finally, the structure of the Satipatthana Sutta is feeling tone is the seventh exercise. So there's 6 before and 6 afterwards. And so feeling tone's right in the middle. It's the pivot. And we'll see as next few days, this pivot that goes on as we get deeper into the feeling tone of our experience. So here we go, second foundation of mindfulness. And I hope that you'll appreciate how wonderfully significant it is to bring mindfulness to this part of our life. Thank you.